Alright guys, so today I'm going to talk about a very special, important topic to me and to my channel and to my great, profound message that I hope to share with the whole world and to generations to come. And that is the belief in finding the perfect city and the perfect place to be. And it's sort of this eternal search for getting there, to finally being there and staying there, which I will talk about more in detail next on Jinka Jabo. Well, before we get to any of that, there's a million billion news items we got to get through. First of all, North and South Korea are going to reunify, which I think is going to come about through great prayer work on behalf of all the people who have thought about what's going on in Korea and hoped for reunification. I think that's going to happen, certainly. And we've already seen the first steps towards that. And it's possible that it's because of the nuclear reactor collapse or something, where finally at some point, or whatever Trump did, God Emperor Trump did in China, has sort of revealed to people that it's going to, that there's going to be actual peace in Korea again. That's bad lighting. Okay, so the spiritual message, I was going to talk about the perfect city, and I wanted to say that I wanted to talk just a bit personally, because apart from all the political nonsense or even the great political stuff that's happening, I don't want to get into much of that. What I wanted to talk about my own kind of a spiritual experience when I was 16 years old, and I was living in the city where I lived most of my life, I would say, is Wisconsin. It was Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And I had lived in my life, I've lived in many addresses in that particular city. And I was staying in one address, and I remember I was going to classes full time, even early in the day, trying to get through high school, and I was also working at a cafeteria on the weekends, and I didn't have much time to myself, but at night, sometimes I would have these very profound dreams that happened for a while. I was very woke in those days. I'm not sure what it was, but I was just so hardworking and focused and intent all the time, and always clear-minded all the time, that it sort of made me a different person in those days. But anyway, I had one of these profound dreams, and this was at the thick of hard times that I was going through, and I was thinking of, it was just too difficult to get through as an adult, that this transition from being a teenager who was kind of dependent and trying to be someone who's going to higher education, all this, like it was a rough journey for me. And working was very hard, but at one point, and it was a totally undeserved dream, but I had this deep fantasy, and I had no idea what caused it or prompted it, but it was just sort of a connection, sort of a realization of the now in all of time. Sort of time ceased, and I sort of stepped into now, right? And so I got this feeling, and it was sort of a reimagination of, I guess, the city, this dream city, this New Jerusalem, or Ridvan, or Sukhavati, or any of these places. It was sort of it was a reimagining of my own city, Eau Claire, but it was sort of, it was 1900 Eau Claire or something. It was something I imagined from the great World Fair days. It was one of those situations, and that's what made it so special to me. And even little synchronistic things about it, like how it reminded me of one of my older brother's train sets and another one of my older brother's comics. Like, it was sort of this transcendent sort of view of the space that I was in, and this realization that I was part of something, or at least an imagination of something that was completely eternal in nature. And it was such a good place to be in. But it was only about maybe 3 or 4 or even perhaps 5 minutes of consciousness. And then just some deep REM sleep, I believe, afterwards. And when I came to, I remember the dream in vivid detail, so much that talking to you now, I'm 34 years old now, and I was 16 when I had the dream, so it's been that many years. It's consumed most of my life where not a day has passed where I haven't thought about that one specific dream I had in February in the year 2000, or 2001. Yes, the year 2001. A specific dream I had in February of 2001 is something that keeps coming back to me. And this is a very personal thing to tell you, as personal as it was to read that letter that I opened, that I read to myself 10 years ago. It's one of these things where it's like, how often does that happen? As anyone listening, is there anyone who can experience this, where you've had a dream that you've thought about? I'm sure I've thought about it day in and day out, every single day of your life since having that dream. Because it's sort of been, when people ask me, it's like, I know you're into religion and all this stuff, but I'm worried about people who get so deep into it and it's kind of warps people and all this. And it's like, well, it has to do with some psychological and literary and spiritual thing where I'm trying to at least find some evidence of this dream, because I found it in so many places. And in all my study of world religion, I found it in Islam and in the Baha'i and other stuff that's influenced by the Quran and post-Christian prophets and thinkers. You see it expressed as Ridvan, the Garden of Paradise, which is something that is promised in the afterworld. And you can take it as literally or as illiterally as you want it. Here in Vietnam and in parts of China and in many parts of Japan, you see Pure Land Buddhism, which speaks of Sukhavati, which is the Sanskrit word for the Pure Land, which is said to exist in a galaxy, literally a galaxy far, far away, where human beings are not born of mothers, but we are born within lotus flowers, and we have shining gold skin. And anything we want is presented to us automatically, just like that scene in that great 90s Peter Pan movie with Robin Williams, Hook, if you remember that, where the kids go there, and it's simply by their imagination that they're able to have this food. It's sort of the same thing. And of course, in the Bible, if you look to the book of Revelation, which I'm convinced now, I'm going through, this is my third time reading all the way through the Bible, and I'm about a third of the way now. I'm still convinced that Revelation is my favorite book because of how it describes heaven in great detail. This one great myth about the King James Bible any Protestant 66-book Bible that doesn't include the Apocrypha, is that it doesn't describe heaven in much detail, but actually it really does. And you can find that if you look in Revelation, in the Apocalypse, and when you realize that it's just the same way as, the Diamond Sutra or A Course in Miracles or anything that teaches you to rise above your own ego. And that's certainly what I found within it and within its pages. And the first time you read it, fearing the literal Christian God and the literal Christian hell, I shouldn't say the literal Christian God. I don't know what the hell I'm saying right now, but what I'm saying is when you fear literal eternal punishment, literal eternal hell, and the stark reality of these demons, which so many spiritual traditions from East and West have shown to us are essentially chimeras or figments of our imaginations, up to and including death itself. I mean, when you worry about these things, you sort of lose the whole plot, the whole point of the fact. But anyway, heaven is actually just a state of mind, really. Heaven is within us. The kingdom of heaven is inside of you. It's a state of pure virtue in the same way that so many of the great Buddhist sutras describe nirvana. It's that same sort of thing. It's escape from yourself. It's realizing that the bag of flesh that you're in, and for anyone who doesn't do it, it's sort of neat. Like I've made so many videos now. It's weird seeing myself. It's sort of like you never expect that's who you are. You never realize that's who it is on the other side. Like, yeah, that's how you look. Yeah, that's how you sound. It's really horrible. It's really embarrassing. The book of Revelation, it tells us that, there's a tree with leaves of healing for all nations, and streets of gold, streets of actual gold. That's sort of a cliche that we all know from certain films. Like this idea that there are actual streets of gold. I mean, it describes it well, that God is sitting on a throne, and there are angels and servants and Christians of all colors who died believing, and so on. It's a really inspiring text, but I think it all points to the same thing. It all points to a natural, basic human yearning to find that perfect city. And having been there as sort of a city that was really a spoof of my own, Eau Claire, that had everything in bloom and everything in pure light. Like, it makes sense that it could be as simple as a Ridvan or a Sukhavati or any of these places, or these cities that I've imagined in my head, where I think, having traveled the world so much, this is where I really want to be. It's sort of like Hanoi itself. When I think of Hanoi, if I had to describe it, I would say it's sort of a pure land. It's sort of a place where perpetually and asking nothing in return, the city has sort of made my dreams come true. And I don't even know really how to explain that right now. But I can only compare it to other places that I've been. And so, I'm still looking for paradise, and I think it's somewhere within me, and I think it's somewhere within us all. But where I'm at right now, this is very, very, very close. I will have more to talk about next time. Thank you for watching my show. See you again soon.